The Big Bash is firing and there's plenty to get into. Again, it's the Scorchers and the Sixers who've got the belief by the bucket load.
We'll field it. Dribble. Got it. Direct hit.
We'll unpack that, plus take a look at which imports are firing, where it's gone wrong for some teams, and Strikers captain Matt Short, he is our special guest.
Goes across, and that is a massive, massive hit.
All that and more on the Big Bash podcast. This is The Surge. Yes, welcome to another edition of The Surge. I'm Adam White. I hope everyone's had a great Christmas and a great Boxing Day. We've got a very special guest coming up, Matt Short, the captain of the Strikers. He'll join us and there's plenty to talk to Matt about. But our special co-host today on The Surge is Pete Handscomb, who is... I was going to say, how many clubs have you actually played at, Pete? I was going to say the former Star, then I was going to say the former Hurricane, the former Renegade. Is that it? They're the three?
They're the three, yeah. I was trying to collect them all at one stage, see if I could get every team. But no, it's nice to be in here, mate, and talking about the Big Bash and a few teams that I've played for.
Do you miss it? Do you miss playing in it, or do you?
I miss the excitement of the Big Bash. I think when you're out there in front of a crowd, because you don't get that at Shield cricket or domestic cricket as much, but to go out in front of 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 on the big games it's impressive, and it's quite a feeling, one where I don't sleep a lot after games. So I miss that feeling a little bit, but I'm also enjoying some downtime.
Now, you have been a bit of a firefighter in recent years where you've had to be sort of brought up to play and to fill a role in recent years. Is that still a remote possibility, or are you're definitely done with it now?
You never rule yourself out completely. If someone does call, we'll see what happens. But I have quite a busy schedule now. I play county cricket with Leicester, and I'm pretty much playing 12 months a year. So to actually have December and January off, summertime in Melbourne with the family and friends has been really nice this year. So I'd really have to think about it if someone does call.
I was going to ask you about that because you've got this incredible situation where we're right in the middle of summer, which is right in the middle of the cricket season. And for someone like you who plays all year round, you're actually having a break. This is very unusual.
It's incredible and something I haven't done for 12 or 13 years now. So yeah, it's quite nice having this break in the middle of the season, just refresh and get ready for after Christmas.
Are you hitting balls at all? Or because there's also a Sri Lankan tour that's not far away as well, that hopefully maybe you might be on. But how are you sort of planning over the next sort of period of time?
I haven't hit a ball since the last Shield game for Victoria. So the bag was packed and that's been just put in the spare room at home. But funnily enough, dusted it out this morning. It's in the back of the car and I'll be going to have a hit this afternoon just to start getting back into the swing of things and making sure that, my first hit out, I'm not just swinging and hoping that I hit the ball.
I do remember having a conversation with you down in the nets one day. So what are you having a hit for? Oh, you just never know. And all of a sudden you were heading off to India and you played Test cricket only a couple of weeks later. So who knows what will happen to you going into the next few weeks. But straight into the power play, because we are here for the BBL. One of the themes over the last week or so has been the struggling teams. Certainly the Melbourne Stars and also the Strikers now are up against it as well. In a competition where there are only 10 games now, when does the pressure start to go up? When do the red lights start flashing?
Well, I think with the shortened competition now and only 10 games, I think every game has the pressure on it. There are no games like there were in previous years with a 14-game season where you kind of walk away from a loss and you go, that's all right. We've got plenty of games to catch that up. Now, when you sort of lose back to back, you start thinking, right, we've got to start winning, 5 or 6 of our next 8, or with the Stars and Adelaide now, they're almost going to have to win every game but one from what they've got left. So it's tough, and the pressure is definitely there for them right now.
So from a Stars point of view, they've lost Tom Curran now. So when it goes bad, it goes worse. It just seems to happen in any sport when a team is under pressure. When you're chasing a season, do you have to play differently, or you've just got to play the same way and hope the results start to turn around?
I think if you've got a clear cut format that you are trying to play. In T20 cricket, it's such a fickle game, so you can just lose games, or the opposition can take it away from you and just be better on the day. So if you do believe in a process that you have, then I feel like you've got to trust that process and almost double down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've seen that a little bit around the world. Even something like Bazball, like they double down on what they're doing, even if it goes wrong. So I think Stars and Adelaide can trust what they're doing. But if they don't have that process in place, then I think they need to find something pretty fast.
So with the Melbourne Stars, have you been able to identify what's going wrong at this point in time? I mean, it's a difficult question, obviously, but are you seeing a theme through what's happened in the first part of the season now? I mean, they're a disadvantage in a sense because they've played so many games to start the season and they've gone on this losing sequence. What are you seeing from them?
Well, I think that's the tough thing, and something that probably goes unnoticed a little bit is the scheduling that the Melbourne Stars have had. They had to play their first 3 games in 3 different states, one of them being Perth. That can take it out of you. Those 3 games were within 6 days, and it can be tough to galvanise a team together so quickly without much lead in. And when you've got your first 3 games before another team has their second game, it can be tough. Whereas these other teams have time to get together and spend a bit more time off the field and getting used to what they're doing together. So I think the scheduling hasn't been great for the Stars, but the one thing I'd love to see, and I'm not sure it'll happen, but I want Stoyne back up the top. I love Stoyne opening the batting for the Stars. He's been incredible up there, and I'd love to just give him as many balls as possible to win games for the Stars.
It feels like they've got a lot of players that can do a lot of roles, but it's actually finding the right roles for the right opportunity, the right moment, I guess. You can have 3 or 4 of them open the batting, you'd have 3 or 4 of them bat 4, but it's finding that right combination, I guess.
Yeah, and that was sort of something touching on in terms of having their process. It kind of looks like maybe they don't have that process yet, because we've seen Tom Rogers bat in multiple positions, Sammy Harper in multiple positions. Stoyne and Maxi tend to stay in the middle, but it doesn't seem who goes in first. The other night we saw them playing rock, paper, scissors to see who goes in next. I'm sure that was a bit for the cameras and a bit of fun, but it can be tough not having that role clarity.
Yep.
So I feel like if there is a bit of, if they can bring role clarity into their team, and I know Peter Moores as the coach is big on that and will find that. So if they can do that, I think they'll still be dangerous and can go on a winning streak, especially with a fair few home games to come up.
Yeah, it feels like they need to separate Stoinis and Maxwell a little bit in the batting order, and obviously bowling's been an issue for them as well. So there are a few things they need to work through, and time is certainly running out. And then from a striker's point of view, we will get onto the positive teams, but the strikers who feel like they're playing much better than what the results are showing at the moment. So this is a little bit of the process you were talking about. Hey, we're actually playing okay, we're just not winning.
Absolutely. The strikers have played really, really good cricket. They lost by 11 runs, almost chasing down 214. So that's a great effort, but it's still a loss, which is tough. They lost off the last ball and they lost off the second last ball.
Yeah.
So they've been in the 3 games that they've lost. They could have won them. All of a sudden they're 4-0, and it's just small margins in T20 cricket. And we'd be talking about them being
that's right,
the champions, and now we're talking about how do they stay in the competition? How do they make the finals?
The Sixers and the Scorchers, we've talked a lot about them through the surge to start the new season, just about how historically they're so good. We've had a number of different views on it. Why do you think they've been so good over these years? This ability to particularly win close matches when it's tight, they find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that the Sixers and the Scorchers have had over recent years, and it's extending quite a lot now, is their consistency in their squad. They and with that consistency, that brings that role clarity, which we're talking about, that maybe the Stars haven't got at the moment. But they can look around the room and look around the ground and trust each other, because as a group, they've been in almost every situation together now. So when their backs are against the wall for the Scorchers and Cooper Connolly's batting, they can trust him.
Yep.
They've seen it. They've seen him do it, which is awesome. Or even the other night with the Sixers chasing 193 to win, Vince is in, and the trust in the Sixers must just be like, we know Vincey's gonna get us there, but if not, we've still got Moses Silk to come in, and we trust that they're going to do that process and get us there.
And as you said, they play so much cricket together that, Brad Hodge talked about this very fact not that long ago, about just being able to look around out on the field or look in the dugout and say, oh yeah, we've still got, even from a Sixers point of view, we've got Dwarshuis, we've still got Abbott. Are we bat deep? Or from a Scorchers point of view, you look around the field, there's all these great defensive bowlers that even if the game feels like it's getting away, I know we'll be okay. And it's that feeling of calmness that can come over in a high-pressure environment. Yes,
definitely. And that calmness as well, I think, can come from the captains. And these two teams are probably the most experienced captains in the competition. With Moses and Turner, you can see them when they're talking to their bowlers. You can see the bowler come back to the present. If they've just been hit for a boundary, or you can see them just get that clarity in terms of what their plan is and what they're going to try and do just for that ball. And then once they figure out that ball, they then come to the next one and they figure that one out as well. And these are two players that have been in almost every situation the game is going to throw at them. So they've got that experience, and they know that they can take that breath and give that calmness to their team.
And I think even just people that are listening to this or watching this, you see Ashton Turner in the field, you see Moses Enriquez in the field. It's almost like this, not fatherly figure, but it's this, I've got things under control. So if you're sensing that or seeing that through the TV, you can imagine what the players are feeling the same in those high-pressure environments.
Yeah, that's it. When you, as a player, when you look to your captain and they're calm and they're not showing any emotion, you yourself can take a deep breath and go, okay, well, he's calm. We're fine. He's obviously got this planned out. We're going to work this out, and we're going to get over the line when it's needed. So I think what they're doing with their teams is incredible.
One of the big talking points over the last week has been Sam Constas, whether that's what he's doing at the MCG, but also what he did in Canberra to sort of set his international career alight in a lot of ways. Have you seen, it's sort of putting you onto the spot a little bit, but have you seen that from players where they have that moment or that innings where it just clicks for them, that can give them the confidence to then sort of springboard that onto other things over your career?
Yeah, I think you can have moments where you as a player don't quite back yourself, or you don't quite trust that you're good enough to play in this situation. And then once you get it done once, all of a sudden that light bulb moment, you go, hang on, I do belong here. I can do this. I can score runs. Now, with Sammy Constas, he seems like he's come in with the confidence of, a 100-game veteran. And in those situations, he's having this fearlessness, which is impressive. And that comes, maybe from being a little bit young and not being in those situations and given that freedom just to go out there and do it. But what I've loved from him is that debuts haven't rocked him. The big situation, the big stage hasn't deterred away from his process and what he's going to do and how he's going to go about it. He comes out for the Thunder on debut, makes 50 off 20. That's a kid that's just, he knows what he's trying to do and he's going to back it. And whether it works or not, he's okay with it. Because the next innings he plays for the Thunder, he gets a duck. But not rocked by it, goes and plays Test cricket in the Boxing Day and is able to almost play a big bash innings there. So his confidence and his belief in himself, I think, is what's going to give him a lot of success and a really good career.
So is that what the kids are all doing now, coming through and playing for their respective states, going on to play for Australia, or is this a unique thing with Consist? And I'd like to put Connolly into that same category. I mean, he did it in a Big Bash final. We're seeing him now bat up the order and do extremely well for the Scorchers because of the injury to Hardy. Are these just two sort of separate examples, or are we seeing it more and more from players?
I feel like we are seeing a generation of younger players coming through with a lot of confidence, which is incredible. But I still think these guys are the outliers. There's a lot of guys that come through, young players, where it is tough to have that belief, and you got to get games into them before they do succeed and start to believe. But Cooper Connolly, Sammy Constas, even Jake Fraser McGurk, like these guys are coming in, batting their way, but they're getting success. And once you get that success and those runs, then you can continue to trust what you're doing. I feel like it's really tough if you do come in and someone says, "Mate, bat your way. We back you in," and then you don't score runs. It's really hard to keep doing that and to keep having that confidence in your own game.
Matt Short will join us very shortly, but just the final power play, and that is on the overseas players. And there's been mixed results from the overseas players. We've obviously seen the success of Vince and early success from Duckett and Lockie Ferguson. Jamie Overton continues to do extremely well. But I'm more interested in when the overseas players don't do well. Now, Finn Allen is an example of that at the moment. We know him to be a great player, but when they come in and they don't do well, it becomes a bit of the elephant in the room. But from a senior player like yourself, what role do you play to make sure that they're still feeling comfortable, still feeling welcome, and to make sure that they do find a way to fire? Or are they such experienced players that it doesn't bother them? They know it's going to turn around.
Well, I think with Finn Allen, sometimes you can be in form and out of luck. And I think we've seen his first ball in a couple of innings has gone to the rope, and then unfortunately he's gotten out. So he's still seeing the ball well. And the other night he gets caught at a backward point off something that, if it was 2 meters either side, it's 4 runs and he's away again. So it's funny. I think when you see an overseas player go on a run of bad form, that's just the game. And I think these experienced players understand that, and the best in the world are able to put that aside and almost understand that run of bad form's happened, but it means I'm closer to my run of good form.
Yep.
I'm closer to that next innings that's going to get me going again, and all of a sudden I'll be away and doing what I can. So I think as a senior player with an experienced overseas player, I'd just be telling them to keep backing themselves in, trusting that process, because what they have done to become an overseas player is good enough, and if they continue that, it will turn around again.
Because I would imagine it would be different being a Shield player out of form, where they need 45 minutes, an hour of batting in the middle to find form, as opposed to T20 cricket, where it might just be one shot or one delivery that can spark them in such a helter-skelter sort of game of cricket.
Yeah, you're spot on there. It's such a fast-paced game, T20 cricket, that you can feel like you're nowhere near the ball. All of a sudden, one comes off the middle, and you're like, there it is. That's the feeling. That's what I've been trying to chase, for my last couple of innings. And I'm sure Finn Allen will be fully aware that he is really close to making a lot of runs very quickly and very soon. So, yeah, I'm sure he's one shot or one net session or even just a day off away from just finding that again and making a lot of runs.
He's a serious player, and he's a great player to watch, so hopefully he turns it around. Don't forget, I've mentioned this a lot through the Surge, the BKT Big Bash tipping competition. Don't forget you have a chance to win $1,000 each week, as well as that overall prize of $10,000. Make sure also you have the Big Bash app downloaded to not miss a beat across the BBL season for all the highlight scores and additional content. We're off to a break, but after this, one of the stars of the competition, Matt Short, he'll join us. Welcome back to The Surge. You're with Adam White and Pete Handscomb in this latest edition. It's now time for our special guest this week. He's one of the stars of the competition in the BBL, the captain of the Adelaide Strikers. I speak of Matt Short, who joins us direct from Adelaide. Shorty, welcome.
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
No problems at all. Now, I know that Pete's got plenty of questions for you, so I'm just going to ask the first couple and then let Pete get all hard-hitting on you and ask all the difficult questions. But just a general feeling through the first sort of 3 or 4 games of the season. How do you feel the team's been going?
Oh, look, I think the team's been going a lot better than, what the results have shown, I think. We're sitting at 1-3 at the moment. Probably could have easily won a couple more of those. So, we've been playing some pretty good cricket. I think we're right up there. Obviously, still a few things to touch on and sharpen up on. But, I'm very confident that we can sort of turn the season around a bit and get some wins on the board.
So from your job as a leader, you've got Tim Payne as the new coach as well. What's the sort of messaging? What are sort of the things you're saying to the players to make sure as you start to chase the season that there's no panic, that, hey, we actually are playing okay. There's no need to necessarily do something too different, too dramatic.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it there, Whitey. I think, just sort of reiterating how to be positive and, you can't sort of dwell on the negatives and sit on those for too long in such with short turnarounds in the tournament. So, he's always been about being positive and just playing our natural games and taking the game on. As I said, with such sort of short turnarounds and the game came up in a couple of days, it's almost like you got to try and fix a couple of things that we've been working on and quickly move on to the next opposition. So, it's as I said, we've had a few close losses and, it's not like our losses are, we're getting flogged in an absolute crisis. It's actually we're in games and there's just a couple of small things that we need to sharpen up on.
All right, one more from me before I let Pete loose. And it's probably for both of you as well, really. But just your own form. And it was a different lead up for you going into the BBL. It wasn't a big group of 6 games for Victoria and some one-dayers thrown in as well. You're overseas with the Australian team. You had that little niggle at the start of the season. So it was a little bit disjointed. So going into the BBL, what was your preparation like? What did you feel like it was like? And a little bit about how you think you started the season. Bit of a long question.
Yeah, it's a tough one to answer. I think personally I'm still sort of getting used to, playing in different teams and, different places around the world. And, as you mentioned, I think, in previous years you get a good stint with Victoria and you sort of, can settle in one place at a time. And, I guess it's hard to sort of get thrown around in different places and, you just feel like you're always on the move and, it's hard to sort of feel settled. But, I think cricket nowadays with the schedule that it is, it's sort of, I think the top players are the ones that can adapt and just move from tournament to tournament and, whatever format they're playing, they do well in. So, it's been an interesting couple of months, even with the birth of a young one as well, which is, thrown a spanner in the works a little bit, sort of getting used to parenthood and everything with that. So, it's certainly been a different lead up to the Big Bash this year. But, I suppose my form was a bit disappointing. The first few games, it was nice to score a few last night. But, I feel like, as a team, our balance is a little bit better through the middle. They've had to sort of stand up with the bat and the lower order as well. So, I've got high confidence in the boys that if we can all string it together, then we're going to be a hard team to beat.
You've played in so many different competitions for so many different teams, Pete. You're nodding, listening to Shorty because you've experienced all of that, including fatherhood as well. Do players sometimes underestimate the importance of that big group of Shield games, just the domestic cricket to settle into a season?
Yeah, I think having that continuity that Shorty just spoke about there, that consistency of that, that nuts and bolts cricket where the red ball, you work on your technique, your ebbs and flows of the game, and basically brings all your technique and your tempo into a nice little spot. You can always expand from that and play those bigger shots and looking to hit sixes and fours. But sometimes it can be tough to only hit sixes and fours and then have to come back and find that ebbs and flows. So yeah, Shorty, with that travel and that dad life, and finding all these different things in this last year that you've had to compete with, how's that affected your training going into games? Because I know when I first had Jack, being away was quite tough, especially for the first sort of 6 to 8 months when I felt like my wife Sarah really needed me to be there.
Yeah, it's certainly been challenging, mate. I think, as you mentioned, I think, and even that time when you are at home and you feel like you can get a good block of training in, and in the lead up to, say, a Shield game or whatever's coming up next, that's been a challenge. You feel like you need to be at home even more and help out your partner and and be a dad. So it's kind of been probably the hardest thing, is trying to balance everything with it all being so new. And just sort of on the schedule and everything, it's hard to find that. You were talking about like the continuity of playing a block of cricket at the one time. I think I feel like for me personally, the last sort of 3-4 years has been trying to find that consistency and in my results and everything. But once you get sort of thrown around in different teams and different places around the world, I guess it's hard to sort of find that consistency and even being in the same spot. So everything's sort of just been pretty new the last couple of years, and just trying to adapt and find that balance for me now is probably the next challenge.
You sort of touched on it there. The previous sort of 2 years where you've been player of the tournament. You're playing beautifully. You look free, almost with no expectations on you, just going into the game and playing your way. I think this year the expectations around you have potentially changed, whether you're perceived that yourself or not. You're opening the batting, opening the bowling, and captaining your side. I'm just wondering how you're dealing with those expectations, or if you've just been able to just put that aside and concentrate on your game.
Oh, look, it's probably leaning towards more the focusing on the captaincy side of things. And Payne's been a big one for me with this. We had him last year as an assistant, this year as head coach. Just purely for my development, he's been awesome. But yeah, I think I have found it a little bit hard to sort of focus on my game more this year, rather than the focusing on the captaincy side of things and, making calls out in the field and really trying to develop that area of my game. The results have gone my way the last couple of years, and I've played some good cricket. And I sort of probably got a little bit complacent, thinking, it might just happen again. But I think it just comes down to that balance and, making sure your game's on point to then making sure things are all good off field, and all the boys are, they know what to do, know what their role is, and sort of making sure they're feeling confident in themselves. And I think me and Payne have a big sort of role to play in that sense. So again, it's just a balance thing, and I guess that's just all part of being a captain, as you'd know, Pete. Is just it's not only your game that you have to focus on. It's it's how everyone else in the team's feeling, and making sure they're ready to go and to be able to play at their full potential.
So there's two questions I want to ask on this, because it's relative to both of you. So Pete, you captain for Victoria for so many years. How do you strike that balance between making sure your own game's in order, as well as Matt said, everyone else's game, and not just how they're looking from a skill point of view, but how they're feeling mentally? And there's a lot going on. Sophie Molyneux was in the studio during the WBBL talking about it. At times you take on too much, and it actually starts to really affect your own game.
Yeah, I found, especially in my first few years of captaincy, that my performance really struggled. I felt like my performance was struggling because I was trying to take on too much. A lot of meetings, talking to everyone, which you got to do as a captain, but putting everyone else first, and then sort of forgetting about yourself a little bit. And I feel like as I progressed as a captain, I was able to focus on myself a little bit better and make sure, I've still got to be picked for the team here. Like, I've still got to perform with bat. I've still got to be able to catch the ball and be clear when I'm thinking out there. So, yeah, I was able to find a nice little balance there between having those meetings, but maybe shortening them down so they didn't last an hour. They're only half an hour, and also getting those extra throws that I would normally get as a batter, and not feeling bad that maybe I was taking someone else's time, but actually being like, no, the team needs me to perform as well, and so I've got to look after what I'm doing.
So, Shorty, to you, because it's all happened very quickly, the leadership point of view, Pete's done it for a long time. It's sort of a gradual progression for him. But often professional cricketers will talk about the fact that T20 captaining is harder than doing it over 4 days because everything's happening so quickly and one right or wrong decision could determine the game. Who have you lent on to help with your captaincy so you're making the right decisions, but it's not affecting your game? Because clearly it hasn't been affecting your game. You were a player of the tournament last year in your first year as captain.
Yeah, I mentioned Paney. I was pretty lucky that Adelaide got him on board last year. Purely just to sort of help me with, making the right calls at the right time and, different fields and sort of matchups against different batters. But I suppose on field, I've definitely lent on Chris Lynn a lot, just with his experience and, he's captained a lot before. So it's always good to have some players out there that have been there and done that and throw some ideas around. Jamie Overton's another one who's had a bit of international experience now. So you're right in saying T20 is, a bit chaotic, and it seems like every year Cricket Australia trying to get us to bowl the overs in shorter time. So it can be a little bit chaotic at times, but I guess it's just trying to take in all the information, as Pete was saying, with meetings and guys that coming up to with ideas and, putting them all through your head and making up your mind of which one to go with. So, you mentioned, Whitey, how quick it is and the tempos are so fast and you kind of need to make decisions pretty quick. So I guess the more I'm captaining, I feel like, I'm staying calmer and feeling a bit clearer at times. So, it's a work in progress, and I'm happy to say that I've made a couple of mistakes already this year. But as the season goes on and the more I captain, I feel like I can keep that developing and hopefully make more of the right calls at the right time.
It's funny that, Shorty, I reckon you do make the right calls at the right time, and then it's always hindsight that you come back and you feel like it was the wrong call, but there would have been a reason in your head why you decide to change a field or put a bowler on for a certain reason. So, I think you're backing that really well and leaning on your players in your team. It's something I do as well. Like, I lean on you in Shield cricket and Marcus Harris as well. And Cameron White when I was coming up as a young captain. But I've also done a fair bit of work with a psychologist, and I know you've got a nice little psychologist working with the strikers, at least for the first couple of weeks. I've just wondering if you've lent on him much.
Yeah, absolutely. David Reed's been massive for me. Personally, sort of through my career. I was involved with him at Northcote when I sort of first joined up there. Again, awesome to have him on board. I think he's big on. I guess for me and Paney, we've had a few meetings with him just to sort of make sure our communication, our wording around how we sort of want to be, displaying to the other group or to our group, just the whole thing around that positivity and, if things aren't going our way, which they probably haven't so much this season so far, still making sure we're, saying the right things and keeping the confidence in the group and, just making sure that we don't sort of dwell and sit around and mope around. And, and I know he's been huge on some of the other individuals as well. He's worked pretty closely with a few of the players, which has been really good to see. I think it goes to show, especially for me personally, that, guys like him and what they do and just how they talk and how they think about the game. And I think they keep you really calm. And, that's sort of the whole reason we've got him on board, is making sure guys are calm when the pressure's up and, performing under that pressure is probably the biggest thing in the Big Bash.
He's worked in multiple sports as well. He's a highly sought after individual. There's no doubt about that. So, Shorty, just on that further, so that from a team point of view, but from your own point of view, and this is the other question I want to ask both of you really, is that you go from being a domestic player to a leading domestic player, then all of a sudden you're playing for Australia. So the expectation is rising from fans and from supporters of cricket that think, oh, this guy plays for Australia. He's going to go out there and smash them now. And your sort of improvement is kind of linear. It's just sort of skyrocketing up in the right direction. How do you deal with that? So when you walk out to bat knowing that there's over 1 million people watching you on television, there's thousands in the stands that, hey, this guy plays for Australia now. He's just going to dominate. How do you deal with that expectation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know. The nerves are always still there. I don't necessarily feel, that I'm an Australian player and that I have to keep doing well and whatnot. I don't really feel that pressure. I try and sort of lean it the other way and think about what the opposition would be thinking when I'm there batting or whatnot. I try and put my mind into the bowler's head and try and think of what they'd be thinking at the time. And I think hoping that they'd be pretty nervous bowling to me and Darcy and guys like Chris Lynn. I think trying to put that pressure sort of back on the bowler and rather than sort of putting it on myself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What about for you, Pete? Because it was similar for you that I'm that old now. I remember you when you were first playing for Victoria, but all of a sudden there's that explosion, there's that moment there you kind of announce yourself and then all of a sudden you're an Australian player. So same for you. You walk out to bat and everyone thinks, oh, he plays for Australia, so he's just going to dominate. How do you cope with that, or can you block it out and just worry about what you're thinking?
Well, I think I struggled with that initially, early in my Australian career, where I came in and I was in form, which was I was really lucky to be picked when in form, and so I was able to play with my freedom, and there was no expectation. It was just go and play, and if you score runs, happy days. If you don't, well, that's Test cricket and it's tough. But then sort of came in and make 200s pretty early, and then my own expectations as well as what's perceived around Australia and the world changes, and with that I felt that pressure, and I felt especially that social media pressure where people are letting you know that you got to be better than what you're putting out at that time. So a big thing that I've tried to do, and I've probably done it more in only my last couple of years rather than my first 6 years as an international player, was change what it meant for my expectation. So now, as long as when I go out to bat, I've had my preparation the way I wanted it to be, and I can sort of go through my routine every ball. That's my expectation. If I can do that, that's fine. The runs aren't my expectation. I'm not trying to judge myself on whether I score 100 every game. I'm trying to judge myself on whether I can keep my routine nice and consistent, and then hopefully that puts me in a position to perform as best as possible.
So that's a real process focus rather than outcome process.
Yeah, and taking away that that external pressure of worrying about the result. Let's just get there and do it our way, and let the result just happen.
So I'm going to throw it back to you then, Shorty. So whether it's at the Adelaide Oval, let's focus on the Adelaide Oval where the wicket's really quick and you've got some of the fastest bowlers in the world, let alone Australia, bowling at you, and you can just sort of rock back and smack them into the stands. I'm interested in what's going through your head when you've got someone bowling 150 k's an hour. I've had a chat to you about what it was like facing Jofra Archer only recently in the UK, where it's all happening so quickly, but you've still got that time to make a decision, to make an execution, the right execution when things are all happening so quickly. Take us through that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's worked for me the last couple of years is just being really still, and not premeditating anything. It's all just about reacting to what's there. And I guess, yeah, we are pretty lucky as batsmen at Adelaide with, the shorter square boundaries and a nice wicket. That certainly helps. But I guess you do your planning against the bowlers that you're going to come up against. Last night, for instance, with Riley Meredith and Billy Stanlake, they've got the pace. And if they drop, anywhere above the stumps, you can kind of use the pace and sort of work with that behind the wicket. And then their danger balls probably the ones that are a little bit fuller and at the stumps. So, it's trying to keep things really simple. That's pretty much my game. Just react. If anything's short, then you kind of use the pace with the shorter square boundaries and, just trying to keep the pressure on that way.
So have you got time to make a decision? Like are there times where you've hit the ball into the stands and you go, what's just happened here? Because it all just happens so quickly that you're sort of more worried about field settings and cues from the bowler to know that it all just sort of almost happens automatically when they're coming at that speed. I mean, Billy Stanlake was bowling really rapidly at you, but it looks like you've got all the time in the world. So I'm just interested in how much you can remember of what you're thinking. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you do make decisions every ball, but I think it's the headspace that you're in before the ball's bowled or even the position that you're in as well, like with a little pre-movement here and there. If you can pick up the length and stuff pretty quick, then, I'm pretty confident that I'm in the right position, as the ball's getting released to be able to execute a shot. But yeah, I guess it just comes down to watching the ball, seeing where it's pitched and knowing that you're in a good position to be able to execute. So, you do make decisions every ball. It's a tough one. I think you just sort of back your training and it's all about, that reaction time and, I guess the more or the better position you're in, I think gives yourself a better opportunity to be able to score and react to whatever ball it is.
Do you have a pre-ball routine or words that you say to yourself or something you do in between balls to get yourself into that mindset where you are just reacting and not really thinking?
Not necessarily. I always try and sort of tell myself to just keep playing with intent, looking to score. That's sort of, putting the pressure back on the bowler. But Whitey sort of touched on it before was about the fielders, like not sort of reading into the field too much and premeditating what the bowler's going to bowl. Like, you might have a look around and it might be obvious, but, I kind of back myself to hit it past fielders or even over fielders, with whatever the ball's going to be. So I think there's no real sort of cues or words that I tell myself. It's more just having that consistent intent and positivity and just reacting to the ball.
That's interesting. Matt Short, our special guest on The Surge. So let's go to sort of deep dive into the captaincy here for both of you. As I said, both plenty of experience when it comes to captaincy in all forms of the game. But Shorty, the leg spinner situation, you've got a real point of difference with the strikers with Cameron Boyce and also Lloyd Pope. Yourself, you can bowl. Alan was going to bowl for you as well. But just take us through that whole process of how much of it is pre-planned and how much of it is on instinct as to when to bowl them and what fields are actually set, because it's different to a lot of the other teams.
I guess to start, I think there is a lot of planning that goes into each game and each batter's. Some batters might be better against pace and strike higher against those guys, or some might be, they might play spin pretty well. So again, that sort of comes down to the preparation and sort of me as a captain to making the right calls at the right time. And then, in saying that, with the two leg spinners are completely different bowlers. I mean, Cameron Boyce with his pace, it's a lot slower than Lloyd Pope. Probably puts a bit less on it. It's probably harder to get away at times. But then, you look at Pope, he gives it a good fizz. He's a bit quicker. Probably backs his wrong on it a little bit more as well. Maybe a little bit harder to pick. So, again, that sort of throws another thing to think about, like, which leg is the right one to bowl at the right time. So, at times it can be difficult to, maybe you think, oh, maybe I should have bowled Boise or instead of Popey. But yeah, it's all hindsight kind of stuff. But you sort of go with your gut feeling, and sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't.
You're known around the world as one of the best players of spin bowling. So I'm interested in what it would be like facing both Lloyd Pope and also Cameron Boyce. Your strategies around how to combat what they do. I mean, even from a Pope point of view, are you playing for the wrong one or are you playing for the leggy, or can you pick him out of the hand? Just from your point of view, how you would go against batting against what Shorty's putting up at the bowling crease.
Yeah. Shorty's spot on there that they are two very different leggies. Popey, I think, over the last year or two as well has changed the way he's bowling a little bit. And he seems to be attacking the stumps a little bit more with a few more LBs and bolds, which is, I think, been very, very good for his game, and using the slow wide one when he needs it. And then obviously Boise, with his changes of pace, it can be really tough to generate pace on a ball that's going quite slow. So it's that is tough. I think with Popey, I'd be looking for his danger ball. I think for me would be the one on the stumps. He's keeping that in play the whole time, so finding a way to manoeuvre that around, whether that's giving myself some room to be able to free my arms up to potentially access both sides, not just leg side if he's trying to shut me down. And then with Boise, potentially trying to sit maybe a little bit deeper to see, when he's slower, if he maybe misses short, I can try and get square of the wicket at Adelaide Oval. But they're class bowlers and they adjust to situations like that. If I'm sure if Popey saw me go leg side, he'd probably throw it slow and wide, and then I'm in trouble. Or Boise would go fuller if I went deeper. So trying to play that cat and mouse game with spinners and maybe get them off their line and length a little bit.
Because a lot of people that are watching the TV on the couch are seeing Boyce bowl so slowly, and the initial reaction is, just get to him on the full. But it's not as easy as that. Even though it is so slow through the air, he's still got that craft to be able to drop the ball where you think you're going to be able to get there on the full, but you can't. Yeah,
absolutely. He's got that skill to those revs over the ball where it still dips on you, or can fade into the right hander and not give you a lot of room to actually swing your arms, which then creates the miss hit. And with a couple of long pockets, I know it's short square at Adelaide, but there's still deep pockets and it's still deep straight. You've still got to hit it well to clear the fielders. So he's going to create a lot of mistakes with guys that try and take him down.
Ollie Pope, I'm really interested, Shorty, in your views on Ollie, to have someone who has captained their country only just recently for England, a top order player. His record speaks for itself. What's it like having him in your team to sort of learn from, both the way he plays, but also from a leadership point of view?
Yeah, I mean, he's a ripper fella. He's got a lot of experience for a pretty young guy. He's only mid-20s, so probably hasn't played too much T20 cricket, but he's a very skillful player. He showed that last night with being able to hit different areas of the ground, which is handy through the middle there. I guess it's pretty hard for the internationals sometimes when they come in only a few days before a tournament. They don't really know too many of the guys or what their skill sets are. So, in terms of sort of him coming to me saying, we should bowl this guy and this guy, it's probably a bit hard early on in the season. So I'm sure you'll get better at it, moving into the second half. But, it's just it's nice to have a quality player with a pretty calm head come through the middle and, if the top order aren't firing, then he can come in and sort of rebuild an innings, which is really handy in T20 cricket. But as I said, he's a great fellow with a lot of knowledge for such a young player.
Have you spoken to him much about the baseball side of things and what that mentality is and what that can do to free up players, especially in a T20 tournament where you want to be free and you want to be out there playing your game? Has he sort of touched on that with you a little bit, or still a bit too early?
No, he has. I think, we got Jamie Overton as well. He's touched on it a little bit. It's just, that over positivity and over confidence, I think, and taking the game down. And I think Ollie was sort of talking about, I think Ben Stokes did his hammy pretty bad in the 100 when I was playing with him, actually, and he ruled himself out of drinking for a while, and he came back in the test stuff, not having a drink in a while, was getting a bit serious and wasn't playing his shots and was getting out, leaving the ball, and I think he got bowled by a spinner, leaving one. And then all the England boys sort of went up to him and said, "Oh, mate, you need a drink. Like, you need to loosen up a bit and start playing his shots again." And sure enough, I think this series he did pretty well coming out playing his shots. So, look, it's a different sort of mindset. And I'm not all for drinking, that's for sure. But it just shows that sort of positivity in going out there and playing your shots. And I think it's, I don't know, for Test cricket, it's a bit extreme, but I've loved Ollie sort of coming into this environment, just going on from the Test stuff he's been playing, and nothing's really changed since then.
Sam Costas has just shown that you can do it in Test cricket, and it's all fine. So, but before we wrap things up, Shorty, just you've got a big game coming up New Year's Eve. It's become a real traditional part of the Australian sporting calendar, really, now, and you get to do that every year. Just to explain to us what that is like. The atmosphere, just going out there and doing your thing on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it's huge, mate. I think, there's not many games where you're playing in front of 50, 55,000 people, and I'm very lucky that we get it every year. So it's awesome. I think Adelaide Oval was awesome last night. It was about 25,000. So if you almost double that, then it's always an awesome feeling, sort of walking out there and. They love their cricket, they love the strikers, and it's all awesome to sort of have them on your back. And you feel like if you're on top of the game, then you got them sort of getting into the opposition, and it'd be a pretty daunting place for Perth. Hopefully, in a few days' time, with us going well and the crowd getting involved as well.
And while we've got you here, last question, I promise. The Supercoach team. Now, the strikers. This is the time we need to get some strikers in because you've got a lot of games coming up, but I can't afford you because you're the most expensive player in the competition. I can't get over to Ding because he's too expensive. I need maybe one sort of under the radar to get me to get myself back up the leaderboard. Have you got something for me?
I mean, Darcy Short's hitting some form.
Yes, he is. Actually,
not sure how much he is.
No, he's cheap. He's quite cheap.
There you go.
He's cheap. Oh, there you go. He might be one.
That's a good
sort of.
What's happened to him? I mean, because he's back playing the cricket he was playing 6-7 years ago now. Has he done anything different? Sort of remiss of me not to ask you about him.
Yeah, look, he's had a bit of an up and down last couple of years. I think we sort of pushed him into the middle order a little bit there. Jake Weatherald at the top of the order. So those two have always sort of been going head to head. But yeah, again, like as I was saying before, with guys like David Reeder and Payne, just this message we're trying to get across is just go out there with positivity, a bit of freedom, take the game on. And I think when Darcy's in that mindset, he's one of the most explosive players, and he showed that last night. I think he striked at about 200, which is sort of what we want as a top order, just to get the team off to a flyer. So. It's all just about that positive message, especially with him and a couple of other guys, just to go out there and get on with it, play with that freedom. And yeah, as I said, when he's up and going, he's one of the toughest toughest batters to bowl to, I think.
Yeah. All right. So maybe he's the one. A couple of the Renegades players, the Sutherlands of this world, and so forth, that can. Maybe even Fergus O'Neill that can bat and bowl, or bowl and bat in the case of Sutherland. And also O'Neill, but I hope everyone's got their Supercoach team in and it's going well for them. Before we let you go, Shorty, just for you, Pete, seeing Matt Short's development as a player, as I said at the start of this conversation, you sit together or stand together in the slip court and you've seen this young player come through in the last couple of years. How proud are you of what he's been able to achieve?
No, very, very, very proud. Obviously played a lot with Shorty now, and we do spend a lot of time in the slips, talking a lot of junk, but there is some good stuff in there. But I think some with Shorty, and I think something he will recognise as well is that a lot of people could see what he could do. And just unfortunately, I think for him, it just didn't quite get that score. You got a 90 in a Shield game at the Gabba, and there were these starts and glimpses of sort of what you could do. And then you got that first 100, and then you got 300s in a month in 3 different formats, and all of a sudden, it was like everything that everyone else could see. Shorty was now believing that, and I think the self-belief that Shorty's showing is quite incredible, and he's been touching on it in terms of his mindset and his freedom and his confidence going into games. So no, it's been very impressive to watch the development.
Shorty, thank you very much for joining us. It's like a proud dad talking about you. Good luck. It was great to see you get some runs the other night, and I'm hoping that it's the sign of things to come and you can explode like you have over the last couple of seasons. Good luck for you and also for the Strikers for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Whitey. Thanks, Petey. Good to see us.
Matty Short joining us there. And thank you for joining us. The Surge podcast continues in the new year, but be sure to subscribe so you know when the fresh episodes are dropping. Full episodes are also available on the Big Bash YouTube channel. As always, stay up to date with the latest news and behind-the-scenes content on the Big Bash app. I'm Adam White. Pete Handscomb, thank you for being our special co-host today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Pete Handscomb joining us on The Surge. We'll see you next time.